Hello, everybody, and thank you for tuning in to the Liberty Report. With me today is Daniel McAdams, our co-host. Daniel, good to see you.
How are you this morning, Dr. Paul?
Doing well. A busy morning, lots in the news, and we do want to talk a little bit about Afghanistan. Is peace apparent in Afghanistan? And we'll deal with that. But before we do, really the top of the news in the conventional way, the regular station, even the financial station, is the marketplace. Because very, very rarely does the FOMC meet in between the regular meetings, and then most of the time they move things very gently. But they increased, they decreased the overnight rate, the interest rates by 0.5%, 0.5, and that's big. That's a big move, 50 basis points. So, and that's got up the news. It affected the dollar, and just to show what it means when you have a move like that, which to me weakens the dollar. They say, it affects the price of gold. No, it weakens the dollar, and a weaker dollar means that the gold price goes up. So the gold dollar, the gold price, so-called price, reflects this. But the stocks were down sharply. They're up and down. Trump is happy. He told them to do that, and he did. But this is the whole thing that is supposed to be a reflection of dealing with the coronavirus. Yeah. And I was thinking, I was supposed to be on a show today. I was thinking, if they asked me about the coronavirus, I said, well, I do remember my lectures on the viruses when I was in medical school, and I can't remember that part. What I was supposed to learn about how the Federal Reserve was supposed to come in to treat this. So maybe I'll learn some medicine from all this because, this is a problem and they don't know what else to do. So we'll have the Fed lower the interest rate. They never considered the fact that lowering the interest rates, they of course don't admit the structural problems in our economy, but artificially lower interest rates cause too much spending. They cause malinvestment, and they cause too much debt, and they cause the problem. So this whole idea that they're really, the 50 basis points is an indication to the market. They're scared. They're really worried about this. And but how is it argued that lowering the interest rates when that was the cause of the interest rate? So, but that's what they're doing as usual, lower interest rates. Even last night, I've talked a lot about the repo rates that had a sudden boost back in September. There was a boost last night, and it was considered significant, but nothing like it was back in September because they're actively trying to keep that rate very low. And this lowering the interest rates is mainly to prop up business and banking and keep things going, and not wanting to admit that there is a big problem going on here, and that all we have to do is lower the interest rates, which means that government can spend more money. And then their argument about my making fun of the medical part, they say, then we can spend money in finding the right vaccine to make, and then all the complications, which is usually government actions makes things worse. But anyway, that's big in news. But also, I do want to visit with you a little bit on the so-called peace deal. And that's between the Taliban and Ghani's government, the government which really isn't a government because they weren't allowed to be in the discussions of this peace deal. But anyway, there's some people who have a little hope. We have a little hope. I'm not very hopeful, I'll tell you. But at least it wasn't an acceleration that says, okay, the thing blew up and we're going to send in 5,000 more troops. I can remember the day about a month after I got out of the active duty military, but I was in the reserve. That's when McNamara announced we were going to immediately send 200,000 more troops to Vietnam. And so this, not like that, but it's still a serious problem. But to me, I never really expect that to work. But maybe it'll work to a degree, and they'll keep moving in that direction.
The thing that I thought, especially when you were talking about the Fed earlier, is both of these seem to have a very political component. Obviously, President Trump was getting hit hard. Oh, you're not doing enough to fight this virus. Right. Democrats scoring political points. And I also think there certainly is a political component, even though we'll take it when we can get it. There's a political component to the president wanting to have this deal inked with the Taliban. And as you point out, it's pretty obvious what's going on here when the Afghan government is not even involved in the talks. Here's your deal, take it or leave it. But John Glazer wrote in the Cato Institute website, I think today or yesterday, and he makes a good point. Very sadly, this deal could have been made under Bush. It could have been made 15 years ago because, and we'll get into some of the details of the deal, but it's pretty simple stuff. The Taliban agree to stop attacking U.S. and foreign forces. They agree that they will not allow al-Qaeda or any terror group to use its territory to conduct terrorism against the U.S. or its allies. The U.S., in this is just a broad brush, will in turn reduce its troops from 13,000 to 8,600 in 135 days. That's pretty quick. And then the rest will leave within 14 months. So we're looking at complete withdrawal of U.S. troops by just over a year from now if everything holds. The only thing is that there are some fine print issues that we're going to talk about today that are a little bit concerning. And one of those are what Pompeo has admitted. We got some secret annexes.
Yeah, there we go. The wars that we're fighting now are different. Back when we'd send hundreds of thousands of troops, it was always measured by body bags. Yeah. And finally, that became unpopular with the American people. Obviously, it should have been known even before they were sent. But no, that's not good politics to see the body bags come in. Even when they try to hide them, people know that there's a lot of people dying. So now you don't see that, but the bombing doesn't stop. Matter of fact, the number of bombs and drones and all this activity actually increases. Does that mean nobody's dying? Well, I think people still die. People die from sanctions. They die from drones. They die from bombing, but they're usually non-people. They're somebody that live in the mountains and they identify with a standard, a lifestyle that we might not understand or deal with, and they die. And when you think of that, what I'm talking about is how many people died in Iraq before and after the major war. There was the sanctions that was on that. In fact, and then if you wanted to measure one of the consequences of the constant bombing before the Iraq war started was the number of Iraqis that were killed and the number of children who died from the sanctions. Well, we know we still follow those policies. There's still people going to die from the sanctions. And I even made a comment, and this might be a stretch a little bit, because Iran is looks like they're going to have more coronavirus than others, but they're also under a tremendous economic handicap, and when Iraq was under our sanctions, they couldn't get medications, they couldn't get food, they couldn't get proper treatment, and I know that must be the case in Iran because they're not allowed to be part of the world's establishment, and the whole thing is if they want that to happen, our people who want to put on sanctions will make them suffer, and they'll put pressure and get rid of their leadership and put in our guy, and we won't have to go in there, and there won't be any Americans killed. That's a little bit naive, and it doesn't work.
And you think that they learned by now that when you're our guy this month, you may not be our guy next month.
Right.
And that's what Ghani is discovering in Afghanistan. And the fascinating thing about this agreement, and I've read the whole thing, and it's not that long, is that there is no requirement that the Taliban stop attacking the Afghanistan government. That wasn't part of the negotiation. So, as soon as the deal was signed over the weekend, there was a few-day reduction in violence, and then Taliban just went back to work, started attacking the Afghanistan government, and that was not against the deal. So if you want to talk about being sold out, if I were Ghani, I'd make sure my passport was handy because he's going to need it. But some of the fine print, some of the ghosts in the machine, you might say, are first of all the secret annexes, and Pompeo said there are some. We don't know what they are, and we'll never know. That's what he said. They're secret. We might tell a couple congressmen, but not you guys. The speculation is there something in there about U.S. troops remaining, because I think, and everyone thinks, that would be a deal killer for the Taliban, certainly for the rank and file. So even if the leadership agreed to something like that, the rank and file wouldn't. And the other question is the political pressure to conclude the deal. And we read a piece earlier about how the U.S. side, led by Zalmay Khalilzad, they gave two different versions of the document to the Taliban and to the Afghan government with regard to prisoner release. To the Taliban, they said the Afghan government's going to release 5,000 prisoners right away. To the Afghanistan government, they said, oh, you guys are just going to talk about it and see about the feasibility. So now both sides are furious about it. The Taliban says, hey, we're not going to do anything until those prisoners are released.
We see on the short run the Taliban does very well, and they don't shoot at us or any other foreign people, and they go after Ghani, and they essentially win that war, and they're in charge, and they're doing better than anybody expected. And let's say that it's recognized in 6 months that is the case. The election hasn't occurred yet, and you mentioned even the political factors in there. It would be good for Trump on his election that he had brought peace to Afghanistan, and I can imagine how much he might be able to brag on that. So if he does that, can you imagine? Yes, I'm sure you can. What kind of neocon pressure there will be here, and how much lying and squirming, and then you have somebody like Pompeo. His heart probably wouldn't be in that. No. His heart is not with coming home. So he's in the middle of pretending he's with Trump, and Trump's pretending to be Trump. And I think that and sometimes they take advantage of an election coming up because, of course, a so-called peace there would be good for Trump, but it wouldn't be good for the neocons. And neocons usually are above these political squabbles. They're in for the big picture on who owns Afghanistan, and who owns Syria, and who owns Libya, and who owns the oil, this sort of thing. So it'd be interesting to see if that happens, what the neocons would resort to doing.
And we see that now, once again, the Democratic Party is colluding to deny anything to Bernie Sanders because they've all united behind Joe Biden. I think what you're going to see follow is Bill Kristol and all of his buddies are going to all of a sudden be way behind Biden because Biden is going to come out against this deal. He's going to find ways to attack the deal. So it remains to be seen politically. My guess is the timing means a lot because if the Taliban, and we have our title, a Saigon moment, which, as you know, Saigon fell just days after the U.S. pulled, and the CIA thought they would last at least a year. If the Taliban takes over too quickly, that might give some ammo to Kristol and the neocons and to Biden and his hawkish foreign policy advisors. It's an interesting game to watch.
And Trump, like I said, might be reticent about doing too much. He might back off, even though he's not bashful when he really wants to. If it involved Iran, he wouldn't back off.
No.
But in this circumstances, he may be on our side of this and want to get out of there. But it's never getting out. Even the troops. The initial thing is what 5,000 troops down to 13,000 or something like that.
13 down to 8.5.
It's just a token decrease, but the principle there is we're there, and we don't get pushed around, and as long as the troops remain, that's why to me it's probably overly simplistic. Just come home.
Yeah.
We don't need to be there. We don't have to wait for an escape like in Saigon, and a few people have to get out their gold coins and give up their gold coins to let the good guys get out of there.
Yeah, we talked about John Glazer, and we could have done this 15 years ago. How many Americans have died in that interim?
Yeah.
We could have had the deal. How many Afghanis died? But I think that the main thing about the Afghanistan peace agreement, and we're cautiously optimistic. But really, I think this does signal the end of the Afghanistan government. They should realize they're betrayed, if you want to call it that. Ghani is pounding his fists on the table. Hey, we didn't agree to let these prisoners out. They're completely irrelevant at this point. And I'm just going to read a couple of things from the agreement itself because there are a couple of very interesting points. First of all, the overall tone is written as if the Taliban is the Afghanistan government. And that's pretty interesting in itself. But here's part one, Dr. Palm. This stuck out to me a lot. Because the question is, and you've brought this up many times, okay, we're going to bring out our troops. We're going to have our CIA in there doing the same thing. Listen to this wording. The United States is committed to withdraw from Afghanistan all military forces of the United States, its allies, and coalition partners, including all non-diplomatic civilian personnel, private security contractors, trainers, advisors, and supporting services personnel within 14 months. There's no way you can read that and not see CIA included.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
So we agreed to do it.
And that's where so many problems come up. I mean, because they, the neocons probably have more successes with the CIA and the special forces than they do by invasion and taking over a government, because they have, can you believe it, but they actually participate in regime changes.
Yeah.
Oh, and that's horrible. I mean, they blame somebody for regime change or interference here, but that happens all the time. But it is the CIA, and it's been going on for a long, long time. And the big event in the Middle East came up with the CIA, and that, of course, was the overthrow of Mossadegh in Iran, and we're suffering from that ever since. So, and we never back down, and we always maintain. I think that's a strong point, that no matter when you leave, you don't leave. It may be a little bit different, but people should understand what a non-interventionist foreign policy is. And of course, under those circumstances, you wouldn't have to worry about the CIA doing anything, because you wouldn't have a CIA. You know, that is secret government at its worst. And I'm sure they're good friends with the Federal Reserve, you know, and able to do their own financing. But unfortunately, the non-interventionist policy is idealistic, but and probably something that we're not going to be able to bring about. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't talk about it, because tyranny and total control and authoritarianism and welfare and warfare and all this stuff, they have those goals, and they're there. But just because you're going to describe non-intervention, at least there's a goal, and move in the direction of saying, you mean you think it really could work? Yeah, it's worked in the past, where people just mind their own business. For some reason, it's pretty amazing to me how the Swiss people sort of survived world wars, and they're not militant. They don't. Their borders are protected, you know, just because of their position.
Yeah, that's true. But I think if you read this, you're going to see that it says essentially that the CIA is supposed to go out. A couple of the other things that are interesting really quickly. I mean, you talk about, we've been fighting the Taliban for almost 20 years. They are the enemy. But listen to what else is in the deal. The U.S. will remove U.S. sanctions on the Taliban by August 27th, 2020. The U.S. will work to remove UN Security Council sanctions against the Taliban. The U.S. will, quote, seek positive relations, end quote, with the Taliban. And fourth, the U.S. will, quote, not intervene in the internal affairs of Afghanistan. That is essentially recognizing that the Taliban will be the government, you know, probably in a matter of days, if not weeks.
The neocons will be going nuts.
They're going to go nuts. And so will Pompeo. So that's why this goes back to...
Yeah, and Pompeo is hardly the guy that's going to protect anything leading in our direction. He's for the secret stuff. You know? Well, some of this the people just can't handle. Although he denied that, he says it's not going to be as secret as Obama was with the Iran nuclear deal. But it'll be known. Yeah, sure. And sometimes it doesn't matter, because I think agreements among these kind of groups, they're made to be broken, and the loopholes are already there. But if they don't have a desire to live in peace, you know, it's going to be pretty hard. Each side is going to go looking for somebody else. But the whole thing is if this is truly a civil war, which is turned into, they're the ones who have to settle it. But it's not going to be settled by, this doesn't look good, the Taliban's getting too strong. Yeah, we made a mistake. We lost it. We left too soon. You've heard that before. We left too soon. It's all Trump's fault. We don't need. We need a lot more troops in there. We need a lot more bombs, and then the peace candidate from the Democratic Party gets elected or something like that.
Yeah, well, I think that Biden's thing is going to be that, and they're still saying this about Vietnam. How many years later?
Yeah.
If we just stuck it out a little bit more.
Yeah, they still say it.
Yeah, let 10,000 more Americans die. We were on the verge of victory. So, anyway, I'll just remind our viewers: go to ronpaulinstitute.org/conference. I'll put the link in the description. Get your tickets to come see us in Houston. We've got a great event planned on the war on free speech.
Very good. Thank you, Daniel. And I want to thank our viewers for tuning in today. We had a couple of subjects we talked about today, but wanted to concentrate on what our thoughts were about the so-called peace agreement that Pompeo helped to draw up, which makes me a little bit skeptical. But at least on the surface, it looks like they're moving in the right direction of trying to get some of our troops out. But it remains to be seen, because we've expressed the fear and that the neocons are alive and well, and unfortunately they have infiltrated the Democratic Party, and they have infiltrated the Republican Party. They have infiltrated the media, and they've infiltrated our university. So we have a tough job. But in spite of all this, we still reach a lot of people, and that's why we have our conferences, and we're going to have a lot of excitement. And it's unbelievable how ideas do spread. Ideas have consequences, and they're not measurable. So the support we get for this is sort of hidden out there. There's a remnant of people who always believe this. So we're going to work to build that remnant. And we hope to do that in the best manner, and hope to see you at our conference. But please come back to the Liberty Report soon.